Hi, I'm Rufus from Clearance Solutions. This is the first podcast in a series looking at some of the psychological issues we encounter in our work. Today we're discussing compulsive hoarding syndrome. I'm delighted to be joined by Mark Hamilton, founder of Human Perspective, a therapy centre in central London. And Mark is a member of the British Psychological Society and has done lots of consultation work, including such organisations as the United Nations. Mark, just briefly, first of all, can you explain a little bit about what compulsive hoarding syndrome is?
Well, from my point of view, I would be seeing people with hoarding who are collecting useless objects, and usually when I get to see them, we're looking at a situation where it's become a problem. The clutter is impacting on their quality of life, and they're not able to function, or it's come to the attention of other relatives, or even sometimes social services or other health professionals.
Okay, because it's something that we encounter as a house clearance company. Recently we had a job in Balham which had a two-room flat, and 15 tonnes worth of clutter came out of it. It was mainly newspapers stacked high. There were no living quarters in the property.
Right.
The lady who lived there had been sleeping in a chair for a number of years. Would you say that's a typical case?
Yeah, I mean, that sort of fits. I've had experience with people. I had a person who had like bin bags through their house, and to actually gain access to the house we had a little pathway, and that was throughout the whole building. We couldn't get access to the kitchen or even to her bathroom. So yes, that sort of fits in extreme cases.
And just to be clear on this, it's not, people have collections of stuff. This isn't that.
No, I mean, that's the difference. Like, if people have got a collection is something that they want, which could be, like you're saying, it could be stamps or it could be model cars. This is usually a collection of stuff that's useless, that people feel that they can't get rid of. Sometimes they can be rubbish, it could be newspapers, it could be all sorts of useless material.
And, what causes this? Is it is hoarding an illness? Is it a symptom of other psychological problems?
We don't know enough about it, to be totally honest. The research is not conclusive. What we can say is that there's biological and environmental factors here. So if, say you had a family member that was hoarding, you would have maybe a stronger likelihood of being a hoarder yourself. If you've had trauma, we've seen with stress, like a loss of a loved one or some other traumatic event, that could also precipitate and cause people to start this sort of behaviour. There's also some research about obsessive-compulsive disorder, and yeah, there's just not enough research at the moment for us to be definitive on this. But I suppose if we're looking at it, if you're starting to hoard and, say, collect newspapers like your lady that you were talking about, it's going to become more and more of a problem as they accumulate this clutter, and it's going to impact on their quality of life. It's going to impact on their, just their ability to actually function.
I mean, I must say, in the cases that, the more severe cases that I've seen, it's actually very sad to see how ill people are and how it has impacted their lives. From not being able to have a bed, not being able to prepare food, all the basic sort of functions you'd want from your home are denied. I just think, do these sort of people, or people suffering from this symptom, seek help, or and if they do, where should they go?
Well, there's a number of points you're asking. I suppose the first thing is that a lot of people will not seek help because of shame. So I'm not sure I would be seeing people in crisis. How they actually come to the attention, that could be through contacting through their GP if they're wanting to get some help for specialised mental health input, or social services also provide a service. I suppose, in answer to your question, your GP would be the first port of call if somebody or a loved one wanted to actually access some help.
when I come into contact with clearances, sometimes the sufferer, a mental health authority or some local authority have been in touch and asked us on health and safety grounds to clear a property. But more often than not, sadly, it's a deceased estate, and we've been contacted by family members who need to clear the house prior to selling it or handing it back to the landlord. And this can be a really difficult time for them. Being in the situation where the hoarder lived really brings home how ill they were and how difficult life must have been. If someone's listening to this and they're in a situation where they've got to clear a property that's been hoarded and it's absolutely stuffed to the gunnels with junk, and they're finding it emotionally difficult because it's upsetting, is there any advice you'd be able to give them as to how to protect themselves to make the process as easy as possible?
Well, practical problem solving, I suppose. I mean, in your experience, do people usually have a time frame that they've got to accomplish this to clear out a property?
Yeah, very often they do. Either it's got to go back to the landlord by the end of the month or a rent period, otherwise they incur further rent charges, or if the property's been sold, they have a completion date. And very often, even if they don't, the property may not go on the market because you can't really show people around these sort of properties. The relatives will want to deal with the estate and get on with the sale of the property as quickly as possible. So there may not be a mad rush, but people, by the time they call us, they're kind of at the point where they want to get it dealt with. And so it might be a period of a month or so that they've got.
So what we're looking at, from what I'm hearing from you, is we're looking at people who could be grieving and still adjusting to loss. So there's going to be lots of emotion. But if it's about being practical, coming back to my earlier comment, I think it's having a plan, and it's about managing it. And I think it's also involving other people. It's not doing it by yourself. It would be having a structure and a practical approach as to how you're going to deal with it, whether you use a service such as your company, or that you're going to do it yourself. How do you actually get the skips organised? How do you call people in? How do you approach it in a measured way so that you're not having to hit it too hard? I suppose, break it down. How many hours do you work? How do you actually care for yourself? How do you allow yourself time to actually, feel what you're going through, as well as this, coming back to what you're saying, there could be a time imperative. It's a tough one, isn't it? I mean, people are wanting to get through this as quickly as they can, but I think it's going to be exhausting.
Yeah, I mean, I must say, there's a lot of work involved, particularly bad cases. As I was saying, 15 tons of paper in 2 rooms, more or less all paper.
How long did that take? How long did that take you to actually do that? When you were talking about that sort of size of a project?
We had 2 guys clearing the paper out for 4 days, and the rest of the stuff was a straightforward clearance, so it was just about 7 hours. So there are health and safety considerations, and I just, going back to your earlier point about, if families decide to get a skip and do it themselves, I'd really encourage them to take it very slow, obviously from the emotional point of view, but also to be aware of the risk factors that are involved.
And I suppose that's the other point from my point. If people are having a grieving reaction or strong emotions, their ability to actually focus and concentrate, your mind can wander. So being aware of, as you're highlighting, health and safety concerns, your ability to actually do risk assessments and to be approaching this in a measured way could be problematic. So it is about how do you do it in a safe way and in a controlled way.
Clients are very often embarrassed. We get a phone call, they're saying, you won't have ever seen anything like this, it's disgusting, will you be able to deal with it? And, we've seen a lot of places and we're used to it, so to us it's no sort of problem. But for them, they do feel a degree of embarrassment. And you mentioned shame earlier. And I suppose there's 2 points I'd like to make. One is, you know, what advice would you give to people coming to terms with, you know, dealing with a relative and feeling of embarrassment, stuff like that?
I suppose the thing, first of all, is to normalise is that this is a phenomenon that happens. And I mean, the research is, I think, with obsessive compulsive disorder, that we're finding that 20 to 30% of people with that diagnosis can have hoarding as a symptom.
Mark, that's absolutely fantastic. Thanks so much for taking the time to speak to me this morning. And all Mark's details and his website are going to be linked on the blog. So have a look there and get in touch with him if you want to discuss any of the issues raised. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rufus.